500. It's a big number for a lot of things. Bowling scores, home runs, and yards passed. And for NSW, it marks a milestone.
500 shows, 9 years, and a lot of memories. This look back at Naperville Sports Weekly is brought to you by presenting sponsor BMO Harris Bank.
And it began to rain. And it continued to rain.
What do I remember of the first show? I remember having 2 events done and all the Friday football games being rained out.
I remember it being extremely stormy and all that anticipation. I think we were waiting here at the station to get the final word on whether or not those games would be played or not.
I just had my head in my hands thinking, what am I going to do?
It was Friday, August 24th, 2007, and the start of the high school football season for Naperville schools. NCTV 17 was getting ready to premiere its new high school sports show, Naperville Sports Weekly, when all the planning of the newly minted sports director, Jeff Mahoney, was washed away. Taking a cue from the football teams he was trying to cover, he called an audible.
Welcome, sports fans, to the first installment of Naperville Sports Weekly.
I remember the first show being very, very raw, and there it was on a Sunday night. It was something that I was extremely proud of.
The pride that filled the control room that first Sunday continues with NSW today, as it enters its 9th season and celebrates 500 episodes. From the beginning, the show had a different philosophy than regular sports shows. NSW covered all boys and girls varsity sports, to be at the entire game to catch all the moments, big and small.
That's what makes this show unique, is it doesn't just cover boys basketball and football. It does cover those, but there's a lot more stories to tell than just those sports.
Some of the greatest stories, were of chess matches or wrestling or gymnastics, not to exclude anybody, to include everyone.
The end of the football season echoed the beginning, as once again, things didn't go as planned for the NSW crew, as the Naperville North Huskies headed off to state.
The atmosphere is huge. A lot of fans, a lot of buses going down there. And I remember getting there probably an hour and a half, hour before game time, and we don't get in.
It was just an interesting year, and that was heavily covered in the Daily Herald and Naperville Sun about them being excluded. So Will and Rick get down there. We did 2 cameras for that, and they wouldn't let them in the arena.
Jeff reached out to Doug Smith, athletic director of Naperville North, who was already inside the stadium, and he added the NSW team to his roster.
Doug gets a hold of me, and like a red carpet was rolled out, just escorts us right onto the field, and we shoot the game. They ended up winning. We get a lot of great video and a lot of great interviews and sound bites, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Long after the stadium lights dim, and after the players and fans have gone home, the NSW crew continues to work, editing the night's highlights together for an eager audience the next day.
Friday night football nights, for example, that's when we'd have the pizza nights as well, because we're all rolling in at 10:30, 11 o'clock after the games, and you all get back, and of course we're all comparing like, oh, I got this great play, no, I got this great play.
The thing that kind of came out of this show that I wouldn't have realized going in is definitely a lot of the friendships.
I've never had a job where if I've had to stay till 5 a.m., I've had so much fun, as I did here.
The 4th season of NSW arrived in 2010 with a new set and look, and under new leadership of Will Armistead and Ben Hutchison.
I remember the first show because I was nervous. We really dressed up the set. We had a big screen TV over my shoulder. We had Will Armistead working on graphics that were really flashy, and I think it really had the appeal to the eyes that would jump out to the viewer.
Hello and welcome to another exciting season of Naperville Sports Weekly. I'm Ben Hutchison.
It was cool from the perspective of I played sports growing up. I played at Naperville Central. I was on the baseball team. 2010 was Naperville Central baseball team. They won the state championship. We covered all the games leading up to it, and I had a special opportunity to be in the dugout with the camera, have that special access, because I like to think it's because they knew me and they trusted me, but it also just gave the view that no one else would get through our lens in our camera.
Along with a new set came a new platform. YouTube catapulted NSW onto a larger stage, reaching far beyond Naperville boundaries.
We're like, a lot of people are going to see this, and they are watching it. That's pretty cool.
As the show grew in popularity, another change to the lineup came in August 2011. And Alex Simmons would be the next man up to produce and anchor NSW.
Hello and welcome to another exciting season of Naperville Sports Weekly. I'm Alex Simmons.
It was something I didn't realize how big, not only of an opportunity it was, but how much work it was going to be. It's a completely different animal of trying to cram 12 to 15 highlights in a show in a half hour, in addition to an interview, a feature story, shoot some on-camera stuff. Oh, and you're voicing every one of these highlights, you're checking them, and putting out the show one day a week.
The demands of a weekly high school sports show are tough, but what kept the group going was the interactions with the players and coaches they covered each week.
The basis of those relationships is why this show has become so successful. The same people are kind of covering the same people, and you're able to build those relationships. This show was built on those relationships.
I do remember the first game of the season we covered Bennett girls basketball. We had no inkling that that team would be quite as good as it ended up being. You know, I remember going after the game over to Joe Kilbride, who just coached his first game. I was asking him if we could do an interview with him for like the coaches interview segment on NSW. So from that point, I sort of got comfortable with Joe. That was sort of cool to be a part of a team that was succeeding away, and to know that they appreciated what I was doing.
NSW grew beyond the highlights to tell in-depth stories of the players and teams. Sports reporter Rick Riso went above and beyond in his visual storytelling.
Rick it became a passion, an obsession almost, to get that unique looking shot that just kind of wows you.
After 7 successful seasons, the show expanded.
This has to be fresh. It has to go up on Thursday. The biggest challenge was figuring out how to schedule a little bit differently so that we still covered as many things, but we're able to make those 2 episodes still look pretty remarkably different.
As the show entered its 8th season, another lineup change was announced, and Justin Zipser would lead the team.
I sort of realized, working with guys like Will and Alex and Rick, who were there for the beginning parts of the show, I knew the work that they had put in to make the show what it was at that point. So for me, getting some more leadership responsibility, I wanted to keep the show running and improve it just because of the work that those guys had done. I was really happy to learn from them and be a part of NSW.
School is back, which means prep sports are back, which means Naperville Sports Weekly is back.
You get that one-to-one connection that I think is really, really cool. You don't get that at other places. That's just part about being at a community TV station and being part of the community. People see you out there and they appreciate what you do and they let you know. That was cool.
NSW entered its 9th season under the new leadership of Justin Cornwell and the team of Nico Hefflinger, Joe Olmo, and Charlie Edward, who, like all the men and women of Naperville Sports Weekly before them, are grounded in their desire to capture the heart and soul of high school sports.